Alright guys, now it's time for us to create our normal maps for all of our sculpts here. So we could go ahead and do the face along with the body here. And the purpose of baking normal maps is so that way we are able to grab all the details that we have here, the pores, the wrinkles on the skin. Every single detail that we have here will be on a texture map. That way we won't have to have millions and millions of polygons that we need to put inside Unreal Engine. We're just going to use a low poly version of this. Right now we are on multi-resolution 6, but we are going to bring it down to 1, and we're going to we're going to apply the multi-resolution modifier. But we're not going to bring in something that has too many polygons at all in Unreal Engine. This is for a game after all. So we do have to bake all the maps, including normal map, so that we're able to save on polygons, alright? Okay, so to bake, first things first is we need to set the multi-resolution to the lowest value. Select your mesh, and then let's go ahead and select and drag from the level viewport to the render, and then just enter 0. And then we have to go to our render properties here and scroll all the way down, and you're going to see the bake rollout. And we are going to be baking through here, but before we do that, there's one thing that we gotta do. We gotta create our image texture here. So let's go to our UV editor, click on where it says new, and let's go ahead and set this to 4096 texture. And then we are going to name this. So remember, the face is going to be a different texture set from the outfit. So let's go ahead and call this MB, and then I guess we could call this face body, even though it has only a little bit of the body, but face body, so I'm going to call it, and I'm going to press OK. Okay, and then onto our material here on our shader editor, we are going our shader editor, we're going to go ahead and Shift A and add an image texture. And let's go ahead and go to the drop down arrow, and then you know the name of the texture that you just created. You're going to find it here, which is MB underscore face body. And this is an important thing to do. You need to make sure that you set this to linear. Okay. Oops, I selected the wrong thing. I'm going to put MB face body. So you should see pure black, okay? When you create a brand new texture here, automatically by default it's going to be black because there's no texture on there. And then for the color space, this is very important that you set it to linear. This is very important if you want the normal map to bake properly. I'm going to control spacebar to just make this viewport larger. And let's go ahead and add a normal map, Shift A. In the Blender 4.0, you don't have to, I believe you don't have to click search. You just Shift A and then type in image texture. I don't think the search bar is going to be there in the future for the latest Blender. Right now I have Blender 3.6.2, but if you have something newer like Blender 4, I think they removed the search. So Shift A, and then I think you just type in image texture without having to search. Okay, so I'm going to go search, and I'm going to go image texture. Oops, sorry. Shift A, and I'm going to go type in normal map. We can have two image textures, but yeah, normal map. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and plug in our image texture with the color space linear. Plug in the color onto the color, and the normal map onto the normal right here. Control spacebar. There you go. So now that everything on our shader editor has been set up, everything's been named properly, it's time for us to go ahead and bake. So let's go to our baking section here again, and then click on, make sure you turn on bake from multi-resolution and you set it to normals, and then click on bake and just wait for a bit. And there you go. Everything has been baked, and you should see, if you kind of zoom in, you see the pores on this texture map, and then you see your texture also on your UV editor. And we can go ahead and save this. Just go to the image, when you see an asterisk by the image, that means it's letting you know, Blender's letting you know that, hey, you need to save this. Go to File, Save As, and let's go and just save it as Targa. That's going to be the default for the gaming industry. Color space, let's set it to linear, very important. And then let's go ahead and save it in our textures folder. I already have a textures folder, and I'm going to go ahead and save as image. Now, every time that you make update here later, maybe you want to change a little bit of the scope, the pores and everything. Maybe you have to rebake it the way I showed you, and then you're going to have to resave this again, okay? But let's see what we are working with after it's been baked, and make sure that you save it, because if you don't save it and you render, it's not going to show in the render. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and just drag this to the left, and I'm going to make sure I have my lights turned on. I'm going to turn on my lights, and then I'm going to go ahead and see what we have so far. I'm going to go ahead and render this out. Okay, if you want to see more of the pores and the wrinkles, you could go ahead and go back to your shader editor, and on the normal map node here, we could crank up the strength of the normal map node. I'm going to set it to maybe 1.7. Alright, now that should be more noticeable, the details on the face. So if I go and render again, alright, you could definitely see more of the pores on the nose, the wrinkles on the lips, the pores on here. Now, I think I do want to make some changes here. I think that his eyelids is too thin. Now, even though we have already sculpted our details, our pores, our micro details, you could still go back and fix some things here if you need to, if it's really necessary. And I think in this case, I think it's really necessary that I do make his eyelids thicker, because once I could see that once I start adding some eyelashes here, and he has pretty thick curly eyelashes, this is even going to be thinner, the eyelids. So I think I'm going to make some changes now. So I'm going to go, right now I am still on subdivision 0, and the good thing about this is I could see the normal map, so I could still move this around without affecting. I could still move this around at the same time. I don't have to see all the details that I have made for the higher resolution. And also another thing is for the lips. For the lips, he has, I think Michael B. Jordan is known for his really kissable lips. Like, he looks like he is making that kissing position, right? Like he wants to kiss someone all the time. You could see by that, right? So I am going to make sure that it's kind of like that. Now, as I mentioned before, if you're planning to animate this, I suggest that you leave them out. Like, if you're planning to make facial expression and animate the face and animate the lips, it's generally recommended to keep the mouth neutral. So not too much open wide, at the same time not close. You want it neutral, all right? But yeah, in my case, I'm not going to animate the face at all. I'm not going to animate the facial expression. So I am going to go ahead and just adjust the lips right now, okay, and close it up. So I'm going to go to sculpt mode, onto my front view, and I'm going to go to my lasso tool, and I'm going to go ahead and mask out I'm going to move the entire jaw and also the lower lip area. Do it again. All right. So for this, I'm just thinking about the skull. So I know that we have the mandible here, right? And then we have the lower teeth here. Okay, so basically this area is the one that's going to allow us to open and close our mouth, right? So like that. And yeah, we have our skeleton here. Oh, geez, sorry about the drawing. But yeah, this right here is what I'm thinking of. So we know that that's going to be area that's going to be moving, open and closing our mouth. But I'm going to go ahead and unmask this, and I'm going to go to my paint mask and then hold shift and then just paint this out so we have a nice smooth border transition. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my lasso. Actually, I'm going to go back to my regular masking tool and then just make sure this is fully painted right here. All right. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to my front view, Control I to invert it. Okay, now I'm going to go to my grab brush. I'm going to crank it all the way up. I am on my symmetry turn on. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close this up like this. And just go ahead and close it up further like that. And maybe I'm going to go ahead and just going to make this kind of open up like that. And maybe protrude it a little bit so it looks like it's in a kissing position. And could kind of make it come together like that. So like this. And then Control I to invert it. And then for this one, maybe I could keep it as it is. Maybe I could go ahead and kind of protrude it a little bit. It's good to look at multiple photos. You don't have to stick to just one photo. Maybe I could gonna make this a little slightly thicker. And I'm gonna go ahead and make this pop off a little bit more forward. So I think going forward is in the Y direction. So I'm gonna go ahead and lock everything except for the Y direction and just gonna make it pop out a little bit. Control I and make it pop out a little bit. Alright, great. Alt M. Okay, good. And then for the eye area, like I said before, the eyelids is too thin. So I definitely gotta work on this. Gonna go ahead and now if we are going to make changes to this, because most likely I'm gonna have to move this part down a little bit, this part right here. So that means we're probably going to lose. This is gonna be not visible. If we start moving our eyelids, the tear duct here that we have added, we're gonna have to fix that also. But just keep the heads up. Yeah, this right here, that's gonna be the tear duct up LP. So just take note of that. We're gonna go back and fix that. But yeah, let's go select our character's face again, and let's go to our scope mode, and go ahead and mask out this area right here. Masking that out. Okay, Control I to invert it. And I'm going to mask this to make sure that the bottom part is not movable. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my grab brush. And then I'm going to go set the lock to, since I'm going to move it in the Z direction, I'm going to set everything X and Y except for the Z. So I'm able to move it in the Z direction only. Then I'm going to go ahead and just slightly move it down. Down a bit, down a bit. Okay. Alright, so I think, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and check this out. Maybe this could come down slightly. So you got like an almond shaped eyes. Okay. Now I'm gonna go ahead and Alt M to unmask. And I think I'm gonna do the other side. I wanna raise up the crease on the eyelids here. So I'm gonna go and mask out this area. Mask this out. You know what? It's probably gonna be better if I just use the paint mask. I'm gonna use the paint mask, just mask this out. Okay. So I think I'm also going to, yeah, go ahead and just make sure everything's masked on the eyelid. Alright. And I do have symmetry turned on, keep in mind. Control I to invert it. And I'm gonna go to my grab brush and make sure I only have it at Z, so I'm able to move it up. Since I'm doing a lot here, I think I'm probably gonna have to adjust the scope, because you can see that the normal maps start to stretch out, and we don't want to have a stretch texture. So yeah, I'm gonna go and definitely rebake the map. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my lock. I'm having a hard time moving this. Okay, Alt M. And I'm gonna go ahead and move that up. So I think that should be fine. Okay, and yeah, as I mentioned before, I think that this is stretchy, so we're not going to use that normal map. We're going to bake a new normal map. But before we bake a new normal map, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our high resolution scope and fix a few things there. I'm going to go ahead and X out this texture map right here. I'm going to X that out. And I don't need to see the normal map anymore, so I'm just going to go and unplug this. And click here. Yeah, unplug that. I could probably just delete this. There you go. Alright. And I'm going to drag this to the left. And we could go to our scope here and then just crank this up. I'm going to crank this to 6. Alright. And checking this out. Okay. It doesn't look like... Okay, so I think... Okay, so this area looks a little stretched out, so I think probably have to fix the pores here. See, it's still a little stretched here. So I'm gonna go and smooth this out. Smooth that out. Yeah, I'm gonna smooth. You know what? I'm gonna smooth this entire thing out here. All right. That's fine. So this part looks okay. It doesn't look stretched out, but it's just the eyelid area here. And then we could go to our masking, and we could go ahead and mask this particular portion. Mask this. And then we could go hold shift and then just smooth it. Smooth it. Probably could mask this a bit more. So we want like a very soft edge, okay? So it looks like it's gonna blend in because we're gonna use the mesh filter to add the noise back. And smooth it. Bring down intensity. Okay, Control I to invert it. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and mask out this area. So I wanna make sure it's a nice, good transition. And then smooth it. Very smooth. Okay, and then we could go to our, hold on, yeah. Let's go to our mesh filter right here and then set it to random. And then we're gonna just click and drag slowly. Okay, something like that. Now I don't want too much, just very little, Alt-M. And yeah, that looks better, much better than we had previously. I think I must have missed something, but I don't think it's really a big deal. I think that's fine. I think it is actually an improvement than before. So I think I'll keep it as it is. And I think I want to deepen. I really want to deepen the crease on the eyelids. So I'm gonna go to my draw sharp, and I'm gonna have stabilize stroke turn on. If you're having a hard time navigating, don't forget to press down your numpad. Alright, and then I'm gonna go ahead and carve this in. Crank up my intensity. Alright. Crank it up a bit more, bring down my brush size. Okay, yeah. Alright, so I'm gonna go and carve this in. I think I'm gonna go start here and then work my way up. Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna go and carve this in. Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and carve it all the way up. I'm gonna bring down my brush size. Yeah, just carve it in. Going all the way up. Going nice and smooth. As much as possible. This is the point where I have to stop. And then I have to go ahead and drag. Like this. Down. Okay. Much better. And probably really good to do it from the bottom too. You're gonna have a nice crease here. Oh yeah, much better. And see here. I'm gonna go to my grab brush. This looks a little strange. I'm gonna pull it up. Go. Pull it up. Yeah, I think that should be good. You should definitely have a much more prominent eyelid. And I think that maybe, I'm looking over here, I think this area is a little too deep. So I want to kind of fix this. I think this area shouldn't be that deep. I think it's a little flat. Should be a little bit flat on the flat side. So yeah, I'm going to go and fix that. Yeah, it looks like there's too much depression here. I'm going to go to my clay strip brush. Add some clay here. This is where I'm actually going to go and add back the pores hole here. Smooth it. Smooth it. Smooth it. And smooth it. And onto my draw brush. Okay, so now I'm gonna have to do some fixing here. See, as I told you before, an artist's job is never over. You might open it and then you see something wrong, and then now it's time to fix it. And I'm gonna add back the wrinkle that I had. I'm gonna bring down intensity, just a little bit of wrinkle. Okay, and I'm gonna go to my scrape brush and just scrape this. And then I think there's a little too much depth in this area that I could add a bit clay on and smooth it. Okay. Alright, now I'm gonna go ahead and mask out a portion of this. Just portion fit, and I'm gonna go and smooth it. Control I to invert it. Alright, smooth it. I'm gonna go to my smoothing, make sure it's all the way up. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to my random here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of pore. These are the mini pores. Alt M. Probably undo that. I think I probably could add a bit. Gonna go ahead and go back to my mask. This area could add a little bit on there. Okay, and I'm gonna go back to my mesh filter and click and drag. And I don't want too much, very little. Okay, Alt M. Okay, that's good. Now we have to go back and add the holes, the pores hole. So I'm gonna go back to my regular draw brush, and then I'm gonna go choose my, I think this is the holes one, and I'm gonna set this back to area plane and set this to anchored. All right, and I think that's it, anchored. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bring down my brush size, bring down the intensity all the way down, and just click and drag a few times. And I'm gonna slowly crank it up, and then click and drag, crank up my intensity, and drag. Yeah, that's good. So I'm gonna go and click and drag like that. You can see I'm also adding on the nose, which is fine. Oh. Alright, cool. See if I can add some here. Alright, which is good. I'm gonna go ahead and rebake this. I'm gonna rebake this. So I'm gonna go back to my scope mode. And right now I have it at, I'm gonna set everything to 0, the multi-resolution. And then I'm gonna go back over here and zoom in. I think I still have the old one that I made. So remember, we already created a texture called MB Face Body. We could just use that same one, and when we bake it, it's gonna replace the previous normal map that we have done. And Shift A, and I'm gonna go Image Texture and set it to MB Face Body. Make sure it's set it linear. Plug this in onto the color, and normal map onto normal. And then let's go back to our baking section. So click here, go to baking, bake from multi-resolution, clear image, normal, and click bake. Okay, and then you see an asterisk because we have replaced the old one, so it's telling us that we need to save it. Let's go and save. Waiting for a bit. Okay, and once that's all saved, let's go and check out what we have. Alright, I do like the eyelids much better. And I think the only issue here is I probably have made this a little too deep, the wrinkle here, or maybe I probably need to make sure that it doesn't abruptly stop. So I could definitely mess around with this a bit more. gonna go back to my scope mode. And if we don't want to see the texture, we can just set it to material. Okay. And then I'm gonna go back to my multi-resolution. I'm gonna set the scope back to 6. Right. So I think this one's a little too deep. Maybe I'm gonna go and smooth it out. And then I'm gonna go bring down my draw sharp. And yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and drag this. In here. So it doesn't just automatically fade out. It's going to show still a little bit of this here. Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and mask this area out. Control I. And I'm gonna go to my mesh filter and add a little bit of that generic war. Alt M. Okay. And I'm gonna go back to my draw. And I still have my pores on there, so I just click and drag. There you go. I'm gonna go back to my draw and maybe have a little bit off. Drag a little bit. And I could also go over here and I want to go to my wrinkle. Wait, I think this is my stretched out wrinkle right here. My reptilian wrinkle. And if I click and drag, oh, I forgot. So I'm click undo. So I need to make sure. I think I just click and drag something on there. And no, I didn't click and drag anything. But make sure that you have your area plane. And I'm going to set it to anchored. Alright. And I'm going to bring down my intensity and click and drag a few times. And crank it up. That's too much. I'm going to bring down my intensity. Click and drag. And I gotta, I'm going to set this to, I think I had it at 0.5 before. Yeah, that's fine. Click and drag. And I'm going to set the angle to 90 degrees. So I'm just adding the wrinkle. All right. Okay, good. Now I'm gonna go ahead and bake this again. I'm gonna set this to 0. And on to here. Okay, so everything's set up and let's go and bake. Okay, and save. Alright, so let me check what I have. I go and do a little render test. Alright, much better. Alright, so I think this is all good. So that is it for our baking for our face here. And a little bit, yeah, the body also has been baked. So we could go and check out our render here. We see the detail. See the wrinkle on there. We see the veins on there. Very nice. Alright guys, in the next video, we are going to be baking our shirt and our pants and our holster area. But yeah, in If you see that your baking is not coming out right, maybe you want to go back and change your details, you could still go back and do that. And nothing's set in stone. Your work as an artist is never over, and if you have to go back and fix things and rebake it, go ahead and take the risk to do that, alright? Anything to make your stuff look real good.